Breaking news, fired FBI Acting Director Andrew McCabe with a new revelation from his tell-all book. McCabe now says that he informed top leaders in Congress, a group known as the Gang of Eight, that he had ordered the FBI to launch a counterintelligence probe on President Trump in May of 2017. Listen to this.
The purpose of the briefing was to let our congressional leadership know exactly what we'd been doing. Opening a case of this nature, not something that an FBI director, not something that an acting FBI director would do by yourself, right? This was a recommendation that came to me from my team. I reviewed it with our lawyers. I discussed it at length with the Deputy Attorney General, and I told Congress what we had done.
Did anyone object?
That's the important part here, Savannah. No one objected, not on legal grounds, not on constitutional grounds, and not based on the facts.
Joining us now is Independent Senator Angus King. He is a member of the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thank you so much for being with us. We are just hearing that for the first time. Andy McCabe says he told the Gang of Eight, which includes the chair and a ranking member of your committees, that he was opening a counterintelligence investigation. The FBI wasn't the president. No one objected. What does it tell you that those members of Congress did not object?
Well, first, John, I want to give you some breaking news. I have decided to announce here on your program this morning that I am not running for president.
You're the first.
There's got to be a first somewhere, at least in the U.S. Senate. A serious question, and I think an important point that Andrew McCabe did brief what's called the Gang of Eight, which is the leaders on both sides of the intelligence committees and the leaders of the House and the Senate. Obviously, they're going to be able to respond and say, yes, that briefing took place, or no, it didn't, or I objected, or no, I didn't. But I think that's an important part of this story. The FBI had reason to believe that there was something to investigate. They didn't reach conclusions, but that's their job, is to protect the country from threats, particularly counterespionage threats. And the fact that the Congress was briefed, I think, is an important part of the story, and it indicates that they weren't trying to do something sub rosa or behind anybody's back, or it was some kind of secret coup. And we'll see as this story plays out, and I'm sure you'll have interviews with Mitch McConnell or Paul Ryan or Richard Burr, the various people who, according to Andrew McCabe, were in that briefing.
So you used the word coup right there, which obviously is a word that some of the president's allies are using. The president himself used the word treason for the actions of Andrew McCabe opening up this counterintelligence investigation. Is that how you see it?
No, sir, and that's a misuse of that term. The president is confusing himself with the United States of America. It was French kings who used to say, I am the state. In our system, that's not true. When you join an administration, you take an oath to uphold the Constitution. You don't take an oath to support any particular president or majority leader or anything else. So, no, that's an inappropriate use of that term. Andrew McCabe apparently, and I don't know all the facts, I only know what I've heard in the last few days, felt that, or the team, as he mentions it, the people in the FBI felt there was a threat to national security. They had an obligation to investigate it, and they notified Congress that investigation was ongoing.
The mere fact that they thought there was a threat to national security, I think we lose sight of how remarkable that is sometimes.
Well, it is. That's an extraordinary, and I think they felt at the time it was extraordinary. As he said in that little clip, that nothing like this has ever happened, but they were just looking at the terms of the firing of Jim Comey, what the president said afterwards, and they had questions that they felt needed to be answered.
Another development over the last 24 hours, Chris Ruddy, who is a friend of President Trump's, he runs Newsmax, a conservative website and magazine. Chris Ruddy says that the president is considering firing the Director of National Intelligence, Dan Coats. And the reason, Ruddy says, is that Coats, when before your committee testifying about threats around the world, answered questions. He said he did not think that Kim Jong-un would give up his pursuit of nuclear weapons, whatever deal President Trump works out with him. And apparently that upset the president. Is providing answers to the Senate, is that grounds to you for losing your job?
No, it's bad news on a whole series of levels. One is Dan Coats is an honest, upright, thoughtful guy. He's a thoroughgoing Republican, by the way. And he enunciated his obligation very clearly in that hearing. He said, my job, the job of the intelligence community, is to seek the truth and speak the truth. he had to appear. We have that hearing every year. It's called Worldwide Threats. It's an annual hearing. The Director of National Intelligence, the head of the other agencies come in, and they give us the best data that they have about what's going on in the world. The important thing here, John, is the message this sends, if in fact Dan Coats is pushed out, which I deeply hope isn't the case because he's a great public servant, but if he is, the message is, don't give me the facts. Don't give the people the facts. That's what the intelligence community is all about. When they start cooking the data to suit the policy preferences of the president or the Congress or the Secretary of State or anybody else, that's when we get into trouble. That's Vietnam, that's Iraq. That's how we make big policy mistakes, is when we start pushing to have the data. What is the message if Dan Coats is pushed out? The message to the intelligence community is, shade the data, cook it, slant it. Don't tell the man what he doesn't want to hear. That's disastrous for the country.
Can I ask you, the chairman of your committee, Richard Burr, said that he has seen no direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia. You sit on that committee. You have seen almost the same evidence that the chairman has. Do you agree with his assessment?
I think you have to parse his words fairly carefully. The key word that he used is direct, and I think if you're looking for a smoking gun, I think that's true, but I think there's a great deal of circumstantial evidence. There also, we're not finished yet. There's some very important people that we have to talk to, that we have to get information from, who have a central role in this. So I'm not ready to reach that conclusion. I think people heard what Richard Burr said and took it as a kind of blanket exoneration. I don't think that's accurate. If you're talking about a smoking gun, no. But rarely in any legal matter is there a smoking gun.
Very quickly, you glibly announced you are not running for president of the United States. We were not expecting you to make an announcement, though you never know. Your independent senator colleague, Bernie Sanders of Vermont, just announced about 2 hours ago that he is running for president. What do you think of that?
Well, I think the more voices, the better. I think one of the things you have to observe, and I sit next to two presidential candidates. I sit right near Kamala Harris and Elizabeth Warren. Bernie sits a few seats away from me. And I think the important thing is there's a whole series of very credible candidates. People who have a lot of good thinking, people that I've worked with for years. Amy Klobuchar announced last week. So I think the important thing is the American people and the Democratic Party are going to have some real choices, and I don't think that's anything but good for democracy.
Senator Angus King from Maine, thank you very much for being with us this morning. Appreciate it.